Hello viewers, and welcome to the latest installment of the LOTR LCG Progression Series, a production by Cardboard of the Rings, the bi-weekly podcast about the Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. My name is Mitch.
And my name is Matthew.
And today we're going to be taking a look at a scenario playthrough of our second Against the Shadow adventure pack. This is the Drúadan Forest. So Matthew, why don't you introduce our story?
Our heroes have unmasked a dangerous conspiracy within the walls of Minas Tirith, but the nameless mastermind of the Cabal managed to escape the city before his true identity was revealed. At the request of Denethor, the heroes have pursued the clever villain and his henchmen northward. The conspirators' trail has led our heroes north, beyond the Ramas Ekor, and then west to the doorstep of the Drúadan Forest, an ancient land with a hostile reputation. Now, our heroes move to track their quarry among its ancient trees and strange stones.
Alright, so now that we've covered our story, let's go ahead and take a look at our player decks. So starting with myself, you'll notice right away I'm running something tremendously different from anything I've run before. So the Drúadan Forest is all about hindering our resource production, stripping our characters of resources, and then penalizing us in some way for not having resources. It's also about a lot of crippling archery damage. So for this deck, I'm making use of Glóin, so hopefully I can load him up with archery damage, generate a ton of resources, and then have Matthew's deck heal some of that away. I've got a lot of different action advantage effects in this deck, some cards like a very good tail to get around having to spend any resources, and then quite a few card advantage effects for a mono leadership deck. My allies aren't particularly powerful. Of course, there's no Dane Ironfoot on the table. The encounter deck does have some means of getting rid of any of my 14 attachments, but hopefully I'm going to get a number of my willpower boosting effects into play very quickly, get that resource acceleration going, and everything is going to end up okay. But what are you running, Matthew?
So my deck is a radical departure from every deck I've played thus far in the Progression series. Not only am I mono lore, but I'm using heroes that I've either not used in ages or never have used at all. The core set version of Glorfindel, Elrond, and then the new hero from this particular adventure pack, Mirland. Two themes, I think, to my deck. One is healing, lots of archery damage. So Elrond, of course, boosts up healing effects. Glorfindel can heal in a pinch, Warden of Healing on top of that, and then the Sylvan Tracker for some Sylvan synergy for healing. I also sort of have a card draw to not only help me get through my deck a little more quickly to get those cards I really need, but to also fuel Protector of Lorien should I be able to get it on the table to either boost defense or willpower to help us quest. Last but not least, because I've got Glorfindel, I've got Asphaloth to help with some of the nasty locations in this particular encounter deck, so hopefully that's enough for us to safely explore the Drúadan Forest.
Alright, so now that we've covered our player decks, let's go ahead and shuffle those. I'll make myself the first player, and let's draw our opening hand of 6 cards. My opening hand is alright, but since I didn't happen to get any kind of resource acceleration, I definitely think I'm going to take a mulligan, and fingers crossed, but how about yourself?
Mine has 2 of the cards I was hoping to have in my opening hand, so I think I will hold on to it.
Alright, well, I'm not too terribly impressed with my mulligan. I suppose it could work, but we'll have to see. But now that we've got our opening hands, let's take a look at our first quest card. So this is Phase 1A, and reads, search the encounter deck for Bury Drú, and set him aside out of play, then shuffle the encounter deck. And this is going to be somewhat of a boss enemy, so he's the chieftain of the Woses, he's got pretty powerful stats. This is going to be yet another instance where, so long as this enemy remains in play, we cannot defeat the scenario. He doesn't actually end up coming out until Phase 3, so hopefully Matthew and I are going to survive long enough to actually encounter this enemy. The second part of Quest Phase 1 is a standard when revealed, reveal one card from the encounter deck per player and add it to the staging area. So let's go ahead and verify that our encounter deck is shuffled, and let's see what we get. So setup encounter card number 1 is going to be Overgrown Trail, so 4 threat. And encounter card number 2 is going to be Secluded Glade, so starting off with 7 threat in the staging area. But I suppose at this point we might as well take our first turn. So let's do our resources, draw 1 card. I ended up getting another expensive ally.
I got a Daron's Rune, so while you're doing your planning, I'll go ahead and take care of that.
Okay.
And I'm going to discard a Mirkwood Runner, and then I'm going to play another copy of Daron's Runes.
Alright.
And I'm going to discard a copy of Gildor.
Alright. I think all I'm going to do for my turn is I'm going to strip 1 resource off Theodred, and I'm going to go ahead and put Errand Rider into play. Throughout this scenario, we're going to have to strike a careful balance between spending resources, saving resources, committing a lot of characters to the quest, making sure that our heroes committed to the quest have available resources, so whether or not he ends up with any willpower, I'll probably be questing with this guy at some point, and that is going to be it from me.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pay 2 for an Asphalloth, and that is it for me.
Okay, well, very cool. For our first quest phase, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to send all of my heroes, and I'm going to go ahead and trigger Theodred's ability on Aragorn, and I'll strip 1 resource off Aragorn to make sure that he's ready.
Alright, I'll send 5.
So looks like that's going to put us at a grand total of 10, and we're already up against 7, but let's see what happens. So encounter card number 1 is going to be Glade of Cleansing. So each Woe's enemy is going to gain Archery 1. And as I'm sure you guys are going to see, this encounter deck is all about bringing a ton of archery damage to bear against us. And of course, this has threat value currently 0, but equal to the highest archery Woe's enemy in play. So it's only going to climb. And here's hoping we don't reveal any enemies. Encounter card number 2 is going to be Garden of Poisons. So heroes cannot gain resources from card effects, and each player must pay 1 resource to travel here. But I'm glad we've got Asphalloth in play.
Right.
So we're currently up against only 9 threat, since that Glade of Cleansing is threat of 0. So we're actually going to gain 1 point of progress. I'm a little bit shocked.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to trigger Aragorn to do 3 points of progress on Overgrown Trail.
Okay, I'll trigger Asphalloth to put 2 on the Garden of Poisons.
Perfect. So I feel like we're off to a pretty good start. And
where should we travel?
For travel, I suppose, do we want to go to the Glade of Cleansing?
Yeah, it's one of those locations that could be horrible or it could be pretty benign as it is now, but we probably should travel there.
Right. So threat 0 isn't bothering me too much, but as soon as it's threat 7... then it becomes a problem.
Right.
So let's make that active. Let's condense our staging area. Looks like we're actually off to a pretty heartening start. So I suppose that's going to lead us to refresh. So Control R. You are now the first player, my friend. I will draw 1 card. I will do my resources.
Okay. I'm going to pay 1 for Mithrandir's Advice.
Awesome start. And I've now got the capability of ambushing a wizard companion into play.
Alright, and then I will pay 2 for the Athelian Tracker, and that's it for me.
Awesome. Superstar of a character in this quest. So, for me, I suppose I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 resources to do a Gaining Strength. So I'm going to go ahead and add 3 resources to Glowin's resource pool. And then I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, wait. Mitch,
What?
you can't gain resources from card effects. Let me do Asphalloth.
Oh, God damn it. So, slight video edit here, as we caught a little bit of a mistake, but before I take my planning, would you be so kind as to Asphalloth away the Garden of Poisons here?
Consider it done.
Alright, well thank you very much. So, this location is gone. I can now gain resources through card effects, so I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 resources off of Glowin in order to play a Gaining Strength, which means he is going to be sitting at 3 resources. I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4 resources total to put Faramir into play.
Excellent.
And then that is going to be it for me.
Okay, I will send my 5 to the quest, plus the tracker.
I think for me, I'm going to go ahead and send 4 characters. I'm going to trigger Theodred's ability on Aragorn, and I'm going to spend 1 resource once again to ready him, and I'm going to hold off on triggering Faramir's ability, but at the moment, looks like we've got a total of 10 plus Ithilien Tracker committed to the quest. So let's see what we get. Encounter card number 1 is going to be Drúadan Hunter, and this is Archery, currently 3, plus 1 from Glade of Cleansing. So I'm going to go ahead and put 1 resource token on this guy, just to designate that he's got plus 1 archery. That prowl ability on this enemy is a new keyword where between Matthew and myself we have to remove that number of resources. So I think I'm going to go ahead and strip that from Theodred, and that leaves him with archery 5, which means our active location would have threat value of 5. So that's why it's so important we travel there. But our second encounter card is going to be a Drúadan Thief.
I knew it.
Which is also going to prowl, and it's going to surge. So let's see what it surges to, and again that has an archery value of 1. And it ends up going to a secluded glade. Looks like for our total threat we're up against 3, 4, 5. We'll go ahead and skip our initial Drúadan Hunter here because of Ithilien Tracker's ability. 6, 7, 8, and I think I'm going to go ahead and exhaust Aragorn right away to get rid of our overgrown trail. I'm also going to trigger Faramir to boost up my willpower by an additional 4, because all of my characters here are committed to the quest. And I'm going to strip 1 resource off of Aragorn in order to do a sneak attack.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And I'm going to go ahead and put Gandalf into play, triggering his direct damage ability on that Drúadan Hunter.
Excellent.
So hopefully we don't end up seeing any more of those. And now there's a hell of a lot less archery for us to deal with. But we are going to have to go up against 8 threat. We make 6 progress, so that's going to be our active location gone, and 1 point on our current quest card.
Nice.
And then that 1 archery is now gone from the Drúadan Thief. So, end of quest phase, Gandalf bounces back to my hand. No reason not to travel to a secluded glade.
Yep.
And for engagement, shall we give the thief to you?
Yep, that will work.
Okay, so here's a thief. Let's go to combat. There's shockingly no archery damage to deal with. Elrond defends. Shadow card is going to be discard all resources from defender. Does not do anything, and he takes no damage.
And that's a nasty treachery, so nice to see that go.
Right, so not sure how quickly we're going to be able to kill this Drúadan Thief since you got rid of a Mirkwood Runner, but who knows. So, end of combat, let's discard that Shadow card, and into the round, let's control R. If you've made me first player, so draw 1 card, do our resources.
Alright, I'm going to use 2 of my resources for a Warden of Healing, and that's it for me.
Sure, and I'm not playing anything, so I suppose we might as well move on to questing once again.
Okay. Whoop, I jumped the gun there a little bit, sorry.
Oh, no worries. So for me, yet again, I'm going to send all my characters and do the same Theodred trick as before. So 1 resource to Aragorn, strip it, and ready him. And I'm also going to send Errand Rider.
Okay. I'll send my usual 5 plus the tracker.
Alright, and let's see what we get. So hoping for something gentle. Encounter card number 1 is going to be a Glade of Cleansing. So once again, each woes gains archery 1, and this is currently a 1 threat location. So why don't I just put a resource token to say threat 1. Encounter card number 2 is going to be Prowl 2, and then each questing hero must pay 1 resource or it is removed from the quest.
Well, that sucks.
I think really the best way to deal with this really not that big of a deal card is to do one of those Prowl resources off of Theodred, since he's going to have our lowest willpower, and then maybe I'll strip the other one off of Glowin, since he'll probably take some archery damage. And then Aragorn is going to pay 1 resource, Glorfindel pays 1 resource. I suppose I'll exhaust Faramir to boost up myself, so looks like I'm going to be sending a modified 4 to the quest for Errand Rider and Aragorn, and then Glorfindel brings that total to, I think, 7, and I think that's it. So we're presently only up against 4, so it looks like we lucked out again. It's going to be exactly enough to get rid of our secluded glade.
Okay.
So let's get rid of that. For travel, I guess Glade of Cleansing is once again the safest choice.
Sure, and I'll go ahead and do Asphalot to put a few points on there.
Sure, a couple points doesn't hurt. For combat, I've certainly got Aragorn right here, if we want to start maybe putting some points of damage on your Drúadan Thief. So let me do a shadow card.
Okay, let's do his archery damage.
Sure. So no reason not to put it on Glowin. So he'll take 1 point of damage. I'll gain 1 resource. Shall I defend for you with Aragorn?
No, sure. Yeah, that'll be nice.
Alright, so let me go ahead and defend. Shadow card is going to be return attacking enemy to the staging area, unless we pay a resource.
Well, that's handy that Glowin just got a resource.
Right. I suppose I will pay that, so he stays engaged. Aragorn takes no damage. And looks like you can wound but not kill this enemy.
Right.
So 1 point of damage on him. End of combat. Let's get rid of that shadow card.
And then as an action, Warden of Healing will heal Glowin.
Alright, so not too much damage on the field, but he's healed up. And I guess let's refresh. So Control R, you are going to be first player. Draw 1 card. Do resources.
Alright, I'll spend 2 for an Erebor Hammersmith. Sadly, I don't think we have any attachments in our discard pile, but he's a hefty pool of hit points for some archery damage. And that's it for me.
Alright, and for me, I think I'm actually just going to hold off until next turn. There's certainly a couple things I could play, but at the moment, I'm alright to pass. So,
Okay. So I will send 6 plus my tracker.
And I guess really not any reason for me not to do what I've been doing, so I'll go ahead and send 5 myself. Looks like we've got a total of 11 thus far, and let's see what we pull off the encounter deck. So encounter card number 1 is going to be a Drúadan Drummer. So it currently has 0 threat, but we'll have to see what else we pull. Encounter card number 2 is going to be a Garden of Poisons. So this is cannot gain resources from card effects, so we're only going to be up against 5 threats. Looks like I guess you've got 3 characters committed to the quest. I'll trigger Faramir on myself to boost us up to 15 committed. And I suppose, do you want to Asphalot onto the garden here?
Sure, yep.
Alright, so let's go ahead and put a couple points on that, and we are going to end up making 10 surplus. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We've almost passed through our current quest phase.
Okay.
So active location is now gone. This woes enemy loses its archery value, and this Drúadan Drummer only had 1 for a moment, so travel
to the secluded glade?
Definitely. So let's make that active. for engagement, this Drúadan drummer needs to go as soon as possible, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it down to me.
Okay.
And for combat, once again, there's no archery damage, but we'll do shadow cards as follows. How do you want to deal with your thief?
I think I'll do it undefended and hope for the best.
Alright, so worst thing that can happen is this is attack strength 4, and we've both got 5 hit point enemies. Let's see what we pull.
Heroes, yeah.
Right.
Of course.
But it is attack strength 4. So, looks like Glorfindel is going to soak some damage. For my guy, I'm also going to do undefended, and we pull nothing.
Nothing. And a nasty Glade of Cleansing, yeah.
Right. Unfortunately, this Garden of Poisons is going to prevent me from abusing Glóin, but I suppose I'll put 1 point of damage on him.
Okay.
For returning attacks...
I'll just go ahead and use my Warden of Healing's action.
Okay.
And then I'll attack back for your hero and mine. And then I'll attack back with Elrond.
Alright, so Elrond is going to be sufficient to kill this enemy, just barely, but he does do it, so that's gone. Shadow card is gone. Only 2 more nasty Drúadan hunters in the encounter deck, and for me, I'm going to have Aragorn swing for a mighty 1 to damage this Drúadan drummer.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, it's alive, but that is going to bring us to the end of combat, and with that, the end of the phase. So, I am once again first player. Let's draw a card, do some resources.
I'll go ahead and trigger Asphalot to get rid of this location.
I appreciate it, because I was about to play Gaining Strength again and forget.
Okay.
So, why don't I go ahead and do that? Gaining Strength. Glóin is back up to 3 resources. So, I'll spend 1, 2, 3 resources off of Glóin, and 1 resource off Theodred, and I'm gonna go ahead and put out Erestor. And his ability I'll trigger right away to discard 1 card to draw 1 card. So I'll discard my second copy of Faramir, and I'll draw 1 card, which ended up being pretty good. So why don't I spend 2 resources off of Aragorn for a Steward of Gondor. And in fact, maybe I'm going to shift this around slightly to put it on Theodred, where it's a little bit safer. So I will trigger that right away to put some resources on him, and then that is going to make my turn.
So I'm going to spend 3 for a Sylvan Tracker, sort of in anticipation of the next quest phase where we have to put archery damage on allies if we're able.
Okay.
And that's going to be it for me.
All right. Well, pretty reasonable play, and our staging area is pretty clear, so hopefully we just end up seeing, I don't know, like some resource stripping type stuff. But for committing characters to the quest, having really no idea what enemies are coming off the top of the encounter deck, I think I'm pretty much going to do what I've been doing, so I'm going to go ahead and send quite a few characters. I'll add Erestor, and I think I'm going to hold back the Errand Rider this time, just because we'll have plenty of willpower, I feel. So, I've got 7 committed to the quest, and what are you going to send?
I'll send my 6
Alright.
with the tracker.
So 13 plus tracker. Of course, this Drúadan drummer might complicate things, but let's see what we get. So encounter card number 1 is going to be Secluded Glade, and let's hope for an Overgrown Trail. Encounter card number 2 is going to be an Overgrown Trail. Awesome. So it looks like we're only up against 7, and we're going to end up making 6 progress without my exhausting Faramir.
Okay.
So let's do 1, 2, 3. Our location is gone, and 1, 2, 3. Our current quest card is going to be completed. So immediately we pass on to quest phase 2A, and that is only flavor text. So 2B is archery damage must be assigned to allies if able. So for travel, I guess no reason not to make Secluded Glade active.
Yep.
I'm going to hold off on using any ranger actions. I will go ahead and trigger my Errand Rider to strip 1 resource off of Theodred to throw that to, I guess, one of your lore heroes that doesn't have a resource already. So, let's go ahead and move on to combat. So 1 shadow card for my Drúadan drummer. And once again, I'm going to go ahead and do this attack undefended. The shadow card is going to be attacking enemy gets +1 attack for each hero the defending character controls with no resources. So this is 2 attack strength. I will assign that damage to Glowin.
Perfect.
He gains 2 resources, and for attacking back, I will have Aragorn swing for the kill. So Drúadan Drummer is killed, its shadow card is gone. I will also trigger Faramir to do 3 points on this overgrown trail here.
Excellent. And I will trigger Warden of Healing to heal Glorfindel and Glowin.
Awesome. So no damage on the table.
Nope.
I think so far this has to be the best experience I've had playing Drúadan.
Yeah. Well, let's not jinx it, but I agree.
Right. So I suppose Control R. You are now first player. I will draw 1 card. I will do resources. I will trigger Steward, and I ended up drawing something incredible.
So I'm going to spend 4 for Haldir.
Awesome.
And that's going to be it for me.
Great. So yet another Sylvan character on the table.
Right. So I appreciate the Errand Rider's resource.
Definitely. During my turn, I'm going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3 resources off of Theodred for my Feely here.
Excellent.
And that means I'm going to go ahead and search through my deck for a copy of Keely, I believe the one and only, so I will close and shuffle that. I'm going to go ahead and do 2 resources off of Glowin to do King Under the Mountain, which has to go on him, and I'm going to go ahead and trigger that to look at the top 2 cards of my deck, pick one and discard the other. And I'm definitely going to go ahead and pick Longbeard Elder to draw, and Errand Rider to get discarded. For my final play, I'm going to do 1 resource off of Aragorn, and I will do a Dunedain Warning on Elrond, if you want to take control of that. So that'll boost him up to 4 defense, which is going to be very handy come Quest Phase 3. And that is going to be it for me.
Okay, for questing, I'll send the tracker. I'll send my usual 6 for sure. I think I'll send the Sylvan tracker as well, just to guarantee that he refreshes. Because last turn he couldn't exhaust to attack, so I couldn't refresh him. But didn't need to, so I think I will send 7.
Okay. And I should be able to send quite a bit, so who knows what we're getting off the top of the encounter deck for enemies. But I'm going to go ahead and do my usual 5. Again, I'll do the Theodred resource trick. And then I might also send these guys as well. So I'm going to end up doing 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 myself, which is going to put us at a grand total of 16. And let's see what we pull. So encounter card 1 is going to be a Drúadan Drummer.
Okay.
So it itself has 0 threat. But encounter card number 2 is going to be another Overgrown Trail.
Okay.
So before we resolve the quest, I'm going to go ahead and exhaust Aragorn to do the final 3 points on this Overgrown Trail, and I will use Faramir to boost up myself, so I'm going to add an additional 6 willpower, bringing us to 22. I guess there's no reason not to use Asphaloth on this Overgrown Trail here. So 22, we're up against a total of 4 threat, is going to be 18. So 1, 2, 3 on our active location removes that from play, and then I guess that leaves 15 points on our current quest phase.
Okay.
So we still have to assign archery damage to allies, but this has to be the least archery damage I have ever seen. So
Right.
for travel, I guess there's no reason not to go to the Overgrown Trail.
Sure.
So might as well make that active. For engagement, do you want...
Yep, absolutely.
Alright, so I'll give him to you. During our action window there, I'm going to go ahead and exhaust my Errand Rider. I'll strip a resource off Theodred to throw that to one of your characters.
Okay, perfect.
And let's do 1 shadow card.
I'm going to do this undefended.
Alright, so swinging for 1, and return attacking enemy to the staging area, unless any player pays 1. I suppose I could certainly take care of that, so why don't I spend 1 off Glowin?
Okay.
So he's stuck with you. Who do you want that 1 damage on?
I'll put it on Mirland.
Alright. And for attacking back.
Haldir and Elrond.
Alright, so total of 4 is sufficient to kill Drúadan Drummer, so it is gone. Shadow card is discarded, and looks like Sylvan Tracker during refresh will be healing Merlon. So let's go ahead and do refresh. Your damage will go away. I'm now first player, and let's move on over to our resource phase. I will trigger my Steward of Gondor. I'm going to go ahead and do my King Under the Mountain once again. Whoops. Looking at the top 2 cards. Looks like I actually got some decent stuff. I'll put a very good tail in hand, and I will discard Cram. I think the first thing I'm going to do is I will exhaust Feely and Keely in order to trigger a very good tail. So let's see what I get. Discarding the top 5 cards of my deck. And it looks like I already found the ally that I really wanted. And, hey, looks like I got a bonus. So, very cool.
Right.
So, I suppose I'm going to go ahead and pick Gandalf.
I am Gandalf, and Gandalf means me.
And I'm also going to pick Snowborn Scout, discarding these other cards here. For Gandalf's ability, I think I'm going to just draw cards, give myself some additional options, one of which is an ambush card that should be pretty helpful to get some other Istari into play.
Okay.
And for my Snowborn Scout, I will go ahead and toss 1 point on the Overgrown Trail, which makes it perfect ranger fodder. I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 resources off of Theodred, and I'm going to do a Calabrian Stone on your side of the table.
Okay.
Are you thinking, who might that be best on?
Probably. I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter if it's Glorfindel or Merlon, but let's do Glorfindel.
Alright. So the trick about the 3rd quest phase, once we make it there, is we're going to be attacking with willpower. Kind of a representation of bargaining with the Wozes. So once Drew comes out, it looks like Glorfindel alone is going to be able to take away half of his hit points. I'm gonna go ahead and use Erestor's ability to discard a 2nd copy of Erestor to draw an additional card, and I actually ended up getting something fantastic, a Ready Each Ally in Play effect.
Okay. So I'm going to pay 2 for a copy of a Burning Brand.
Alright, awesome.
And then 2 for an Erebor Hammersmith, and I'm hoping that Cram is still on top.
Let me go ahead and take a look.
And that's it for me.
Yes, Cram is at the top, so I'll go ahead and return that to hand.
Okay, perfect.
Looks like all in all, pretty good round.
Yeah.
For committing characters to the quest, I suppose I'll send all my heroes. I'll put Theodred's resource on Glowin, and I'm gonna go ahead and strip a resource off Aragorn to ready him. I will also send Erestor. I'll send Errand Rider. I think I'll hold back my Snowborn Scout as a blocker.
Okay.
And I'm okay with what I've sent. So I'm doing a total of 7.
Alright. I'll send my tracker for sure. Merlon for 2. I'll send a total of 3.
Alright, so a total of 10, and we certainly don't have much progress to make, but let's see what we pull. So encounter card number 1 is going to be a Drúadan Hunter, which is Prowl 1.
Okay.
I suppose I'll pull that off of Glowin.
Okay.
And this is Archery X, currently 2. So, sitting at Archery 2, it's contributing 0 threat because of the Athelian Tracker. Encounter card number 2 is going to be a Garden of Poisons, so heroes can't gain resources from card effects.
Alright.
So we're up against 2 threats. Looks like we're going to end up making a total of 8 progress. So let's do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, straight away, our active location is going to be explored, and we pass through our 2nd quest phase. So we're going to move on to quest phase 3A, which is add Drew Bury Drew to the staging area. So I'm going to go ahead and put him in there. let's go ahead and flip this, and this is where things get slightly complicated. So characters now use defense instead of willpower when questing, and they use willpower instead of attack when attacking enemies. If an enemy would be damaged, instead of damage tokens, they end up getting progress tokens. And as soon as an enemy has progress tokens equal to its hit points, they're basically considered won over through diplomacy. So they're added to the victory display, and we splash all those progress tokens onto our current quest. So, at the present moment, before we move on to engagement, do we want to Asphalloth our garden?
Well, we can certainly travel there and Asphalloth it as well.
So why don't we just do the 2 progress tokens on it here? No real reason to stomach that travel effect, I guess, if we don't have to.
Oh, right. I forgot that it had one.
For engagement, Drew Bury Drew is probably best on your side of the table.
Oh, well, yeah, that's why I left everybody up. Yep.
Excellent planning. So I'll go ahead and throw him over to you. And for me, I'm going to go ahead and pull Drúadan Hunter over here.
Okay.
So, at the beginning of combat, we've got a little bit of archery damage to deal with. So it is still 2 heroes. I'll put those 2 points on Glóin, and unfortunately, Garden of Poisons does not trigger.
Oh, well, I could have put it on Merlon, because the tracker would have healed her, but it does not matter, because the Warden of Healing is on the table.
It sounds like that's probably a better bet, so
Sure.
why don't you just put the damage on her?
Okay, perfect.
Gandalf would have been another good option, so
Yeah.
no reason to overstrain our healing more than we have to. Let's go ahead and do shadow cards, starting with first player first. And for me, now I'm feeling good about leaving Gandalf open, I'm going to have my Snowborn Scout defend against the Hunter here.
Okay.
So shadow card is going to be return it to the staging area after it attacks. I don't think I want that to resolve, so I will spend 1 resource off Theodred, so it stays locked with me. The Snowborn Scout, unfortunately, trying to do the diplomatic thing, is shot to pieces. And how about your enemies here?
Elrond will defend for me.
Alright, so Elrond with defense 4. Let's see what this shadow card is. It is cancelled via Burning Brand, so don't have to worry about it.
Nope.
But Elrond does take 1 massive point of damage.
Yep.
Alright, from my side, Aragorn swings with Gandalf for a grand total of 7, and that is going to put 3 progress tokens equal to its hit points on my Drúadan Hunter. So, and I'm sorry, it was actually 6. So Aragorn's got the 2 willpower, Gandalf has got 6. So Drúadan Hunter is exactly eliminated. I'm going to add it to our victory display, even though it doesn't have points. I'll discard that shadow card, and that is going to be 3 progress on our final quest phase here.
Right.
And how about you?
Let's see. Well, Glorfindel is attacking. I need to do a total of 9. So
Right.
Glorfindel is 5.
Okay,
Haldir is 6, 7.
okay.
And then my Hammersmiths make it 9.
Alright, and...
Don't even need Faramir's ability.
Right, I
Though
was
that
gonna
would have
say.
been very helpful and cool.
He's certainly there. So, looks like that's going to be exactly enough to get rid of Drew Bury Drew. Just to remind us that he's in the victory display, I'm going to go ahead and set him over here. And at this point, every character in play gets +1 defense, which is super handy for siege questing, and +1 willpower, which is super handy for killing the other Wozes. So we've won over their chieftain, and looks like that is going to make the round.
Well, not quite, Mitch. We get to make the 6 progress because of his hit points, being progress tokens.
That's kind of a big thing to forget, so I very
Yeah.
much appreciate it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've currently got 9 out of our 14. So
Indeed.
looking good.
Now we can refresh.
Thank you very much. So Gandalf finally... Well, you know, before Gandalf leaves play, during my refresh phase... I suppose, never mind. Aristor's ability is once per round. I guess what I could do is I'll exhaust King Under the Mountain before our round ends to look at the top 2, and I actually ended up getting it, so I will put a very good tale in hand. I will discard Dunedain Watcher, and I will exhaust Gandalf and Errand Rider to play a very good tale before Gandalf leaves play.
Okay.
So let me actually discard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
And nothing too terribly special, but I do get a couple allies put into play.
Right.
Now Gandalf is discarded.
Yep. And then during refresh, I will also trigger Asphaleth on our location here.
Sure. So 2 points on that. It is now gone.
Yep.
And now I'll go ahead and move on to resource phase and draw some cards.
Oh, and Merland would have, I made a mistake. I caught yours and missed mine. Merland would have healed, and I would have triggered my Warden on Elrond.
Sure.
I just was so excited to kill win over Drewberry Drew, I forgot.
Right. So, for my planning phase, I guess I'll do Cram on Elrond.
Perfect.
And also a Cram on... Who are you thinking is best? I guess, doesn't really matter too much.
No, you could even put it on Aragorn.
Yeah.
Or 2 crams on Elrond, maybe.
Sure. No real reason not to. I'm feeling pretty good about our chances at this point, but I guess it could always go wrong.
Sure.
So, let's see. For my turn, I've got a few different options. I think I'm going to actually play Superstar Snowborn Scout with his massive 2 defense for 1 resource. And I'm thinking that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to do anything too risky. I've got an ambush card, and I've got a ready character card, should we end up needing those.
There's stuff that I could play. I just honestly don't think it's needed.
Right. And who knows if we're going to lose resources, so...
Right. So I think I'm just going to hold back that way in case we haven't gotten some of those some of the nastier cards haven't happened. At least not as staging area cards. I think I'm just going to hold off.
Right. Well, certainly can't blame you. So, I guess for questing, no reason not to send my normal crew.
And we're sieging now.
Yes. So let me see. And I suppose might as well send a lot of allies. I think I'm pretty much going to send all of mine, really.
I'll send 9.
Okay.
And then if you want to take one of your crams, I'll ready Elrond.
Alright. And I'm going to go ahead and pay 2 resources right away before I lose some of those.
Oh, are you going to do the ready all people thing?
And yeah, I'll do the ready all people.
Wait,
so.
Alright, well then I sent 10.
Sure. No reason not to.
Right.
So, I've sent 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 total to the quest, and you made sure to account for Drewberry Drew's boost?
Yeah. So my committed total is 18.
Alright.
And then the tracker used his ability to, when I exhausted him before you had played the event, to lower the threat. So hopefully that will help us. I'm sure it will.
Alright, so looks like we've got a grand total of 40 sent to the quest.
Yep.
We're looking to make 5 progress, so
I think we'll do it.
fingers crossed. Encounter card number 1 is going to be Drúadan Elite, which is Prowl 2.
Okay.
So, I guess I'm going to do 1 off of each of my characters here.
Okay.
And this is going to be 0 threat because of your Ithilien tracker.
Yep.
And encounter card number 2 is going to be Surge, which kind of sucks. But this is, when revealed, each player must pay 1 resource for each attachment he controls or discard all attachments he controls. So I guess we have to spend those resources.
Right.
So I can pay for mine.
Yeah,
and it's looking like you are SOL.
So I have to, it's not individually, it's total.
So, this card reads, each player must pay 1 resource for each attachment he controls, or discard all attachments he controls. This is one of 3 treacheries in this deck where it's, each player must do this, or something else happens. We had Caleb Grace clarify for us the other 2 treacheries, but this one is still a little bit uncertain. For this must X, or there's Y penalty type phrasing, Caleb has told us that it looks like a choice, but it's really a direction for the players. So he says you must do this. If you can't, do this instead. So Matthew and I weren't sure if he had to spend all of his resources one at a time until he realizes he can't pay for this card, but the way Caleb's email makes it sound is we can't pay one resource for each attachment, at least Matthew can't, so he gets rid of all of his attachments. But I assume that first part he can't do, so I would assume all attachments are gone, but you keep your resources.
Yep. So you can take yours back.
Alright, so I will discard those two.
If only I didn't have that cram.
Let me take control of the Clay-Green Stone. Cram does always ruin things. So this is a 2-copy card. Low likelihood of seeing it, but it certainly screwed things up for us. And now there aren't a lot of resources. I can't even ambush a wizard into play. But let's see what happens. So this card does surge. It looks like I did forget to exhaust a couple of allies after playing Strength of Arms. So why don't I go ahead and...
ready them?
Right, ready them. So why don't I make up for that now? Encounter card, hopefully number 2, is going to be each player removes one character he controls from the quest.
Okay.
Do we have any characters committed to the quest to remove? I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're still committed. They're just ready.
Right. I was just joking.
Oh, you're joking. All right.
Yes.
Well, I'll remove a character, right?
Right.
So I'll remove 2.
Okay, and I'll also remove, say, Keeley, so our total drops down to 36. So hopefully we still have enough left to still make it through. So I'll discard Lost Companion. Looks like we're up against a grand total of 0 threat, thanks to the Ithilien tracker. And at this point, we're going to end up making 36 progress, which is going to put us at 45 out of 14 for our current quest. So even without the Outlands, it ended up being pretty ridiculous. So, at this point, looks like we've got more than enough of our required quest points. Drew Bury Drew is in our victory display, as is one other Drúadan enemy. So, at this point, Matthew, do you want to go ahead and close out our story?
The small rough hands of Drewberry Drew gently touch yours in friendship. His eyes are sad for those lost in the needless skirmish. Drewberry Drew shall remember that not all tall men would be enemies, he rumbles, his voice bringing to mind roots in old earth and stones in deep rivers. Drewberry Drew shall tell Gonbury Gon that there are some tall men who would touch the wild men in ways other than steel. The small man gives you a final look of appraisal and then barks a command to his kin. The Woses begin to blend back into the silent obscurity of the forest. Drewberry Drew moves to follow, but turns a last time before the forest absorbs his presence. There is a bad smell in the air, he observes, as his face tilts to glance at the eastern sky. More Sorry More says there are bad years coming for both tall men and wild men. He raises his hand in farewell, and then he is gone. You find yourselves alone with the gray rocks and the ancient canopy of the Drúadan once more. Muffled in the distance, you hear the voice of Drewberry Drew faintly lift above the forest murmur, "May you stand against the shadow." Relieved and tired, you emerge from the forest. You are glad to be alive and satisfied to have seen the end of the conspirators. With the Drúadan behind you, you make your return eastward and southward to Minas Tirith. On the morning of the second day, you wake to multiple columns of smoke trailing into the eastern sky. Farmsteads and towns of Anorian are burning. Evil has come to the lands north of the Ramas Ekor, and its people will be in need of help.
All right. So, now that we've covered our story, any final thoughts, Matthew, about our adventures in the Drúadan Forest?
Well, I have to say that this is the easiest playthrough of Drúadan Forest that I've ever had. Let me first give credit to Ian over at the Tales from the Cards blog, because I think he was the inspiration for both of our decks. Mine is slightly modified from one he posted on his blog, but I definitely think it came in handy. I think we had the smallest amount of archery damage I've ever had in this quest. We never had the 10 threat location happen. There's the location that, if it's in play, it raises the cost of everything by 1, which is really painful in conjunction with the Gardens of Poisons, which you can't gain resources from card effects. We never actually got that location in the staging area. I think it was only shadow effects. So I absolutely like this quest. I love that we have enemies that aren't spiders or wargs or orcs or goblins or dragons or the usual sort of enemies. So I really like that. I think the theme is just fantastic. In most playthroughs, it's just been just a bear because there's archery left and right. There is prowl left and right. You never have the resources to pay for anything and whatnot. But I think in some senses, the encounter deck was really giving us some softballs. And this wasn't an easy victory. It was sort of prolonged, and there was moments where it could have gone either way. But I really do like this quest. So far for me, the 3 that we have in the cycle, this is the strongest for me. It's my favorite so far. But it is pretty tough, and I don't know if it's one I'm going to take out to play with my buddies too often. But yeah, I think this went quite well. I was able to get quite a few allies in play. I think your deck worked very well. A very good tail was quite handy. Faramir, a core set card that doesn't see a lot of play too often, I think is absolutely stellar in this quest. Whether he's boosting up willpower to help us push through these nasty locations, or helping us win over the Wozes, which we actually didn't need him for, but in other games I've played, because Faramir can work in any phase, it's not just the questing phase, he's been really helpful in other games I've played to help defeat some of the Wozes. So yeah, I really like it. I think these decks worked quite well together, and I had fun playing this one.
I definitely have to agree with your sentiments that this is the strongest of our first 3 adventure packs, where I felt as though the Steward's Fear was for the most part a pushover, so long as you can do something like Thalon and then any other single point of direct damage type effect. That quest was pretty much trivialized, so long as you could break even with the amount of willpower in the staging area. This playthrough is certainly unlike any other experience I've ever had playing the Drúadan Forest. I think maybe we had a grand total of 2 to 4 archery damage throughout the entire video, whereas in the past, kind of just like you've said, I've had countless times where it's you reveal a Drúadan Hunter, something strips all the resources off of your characters, and it's turn 1 or turn 2, and you already have Archery 7 to deal with, or God forbid you end up drawing additional copies of that same card. It seems like all of our Glades of Poison, I believe the threat value X1 is called, came at a very convenient time when we either didn't have to deal with their threat value or it was only 1. We didn't end up dealing with too many combo cards coming off of the encounter deck, like something stripping off all of our resources, and then remove all characters committed to the quest unless you can pay a resource for each hero, something like that. So the encounter deck certainly has a multitude of different tools at its disposal to really break the player's economy down. I feel like this is a pretty simple, kind of dull quest when it comes to playing a solo game, just because the encounter deck doesn't have many opportunities to get out multiple cards per turn and set itself up, but it can certainly all go to hell very easily in a multiplayer game. I feel like our draws were definitely in our favor, and I think we got off pretty easy when it came to encounter card flips. There was no Drúadan Drummer, and then Drúadan Thief surges to another Drúadan Thief, surges to a Drúadan Hunter, so it certainly could have been very, very bad. I think Ithilien Tracker was fantastic. Having ranger characters like Faramir and Aragorn are super helpful in getting rid of those terrible overgrown trails, so this quest can certainly be just a living nightmare. Before I played this video, I was very much ready to declare the Drúadan Forest as the absolute most difficult non-nightmare difficulty scenario at this point in the game, but we definitely didn't have that experience this go through, so this is fun. I like that you have to think about what characters do you want to commit to the quest. Do they have resources? Do they not? Do you want to play the cards in your hand or hold on to those resources just in case something nasty comes off the encounter deck? So there's a lot of interesting, very unique stuff going on here. I think the third quest phase is very cool, and all in all, this is a great scenario. I just don't think, kind of like you said, I'm not going to be breaking this one out all the time just to have my soul crushed.
Right. I think 2 final thoughts, and I'm going to echo sort of what you just said. I really like the third quest phase where you're attacking enemies with willpower, sort of to win them over through diplomacy. I think that's very neat. It's not something I'd want to see a ton of, certainly, but I like it. And again, I think, some people really dislike quests that you have to deck build for specifically, A Journey to Rosgobel, it seems to be either a loved quest, it's one of my favorite, or a hated quest because you have to deck build for it particularly. I don't mind that. That's what every game is about. If you're playing competitive Magic the Gathering, for example, and the metagame, this is a certain deck type that's really popular, really stomping. Well, if you don't want to play that, you have to deck build against it. That's inherent in any card game. So I find that to be a criticism I don't take all that seriously, though I do understand it. So I just think it's such a cool quest to be different. This is also a quest, I think, much like A Journey to Rosgobel, where you really want healing in your deck. And it can be helpful. And so, I think the reason I wouldn't bust this out of the binder too much is because you kind of have to deck build for it. I'm not sure that you could, at least at this point in the game, slap two decks together and really have a great chance of success here. But yeah, it's definitely a good quest. It's one I'll revisit, a couple years down the road if we're still doing the progression series. I sort of dread the nightmare version of this particular quest. But as it is now, I absolutely had fun, and I'm looking forward to our playthrough of the encounter at Amon-Din.
Definitely. So, as always, thank you guys so much for checking out another entry in the LOTR LCG progression series. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. Matthew and I always love to hear about your own play experiences with these scenarios, even though those don't seem to be comments that are left very often. We always like to hear from you guys, so next up is going to be our player card review for the Encounter at Amon-Din Adventure Pack, so we'll see you again soon.
The small rough hands of Drewberry Drew gently touch yours in friendship. Oh, God, that's fucking porno. Let me start over.
The writers have really done a great job capturing the homoeroticism of Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Alrighty. Anyway,